you're right. It's this idea of, do you wait on God or do you take action? As if they're two different things.
Amen. Yes.
But to me, waiting on God is a posture of my heart. It's not a passive posture. It's not sitting around twiddling my thumbs. It's being intentional and moving towards Him. I don't consider it luck. I consider it a whole lot of hard work with a whole lot of God's grace, but hard work that has been happening behind the scenes since 10 years ago.
Welcome back to the show and welcome back to Smart Girl Summer. Today I'm with one of my favorite smart girls, Debra Fileta. She is an amazing counselor. She is an author many times over. She's a speaker. She runs a network of Christian counselors. She's absolutely brilliant, and behind the scenes, she is so kind and so gracious and so loving. Today you get to know her a little bit more, and you get to know how did she get to where she is. You know, I'm obsessed with the behind the scenes. I'm obsessed with all the things that nobody ever gets to talk about. That's what we're doing today, and I think you're going to love it. Now, here's something that's happening for the next month that's a little bit different. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag, but starting in September, we have big changes to the show. Lots more coaching, lots more Allie. Do you want more Allie? I don't know. We'll see. Still great guest, but we're mixing things up. So for the next month, we're going to have more Smart Girl Summer. Then we're going to have a couple of our favorite themed best of episodes. And then starting in September, I have something amazing for you. So this next month, no coaching after the interviews. We're just going to go straight great content while have a little extra time to build something special for you in the background. But of course, I have recommendations. I have two products. This is beauty. Again, I'm talking a lot about beauty lately. Am I a beauty influencer? I don't think so, but I'll share what I like. I have one version of this product that you should not buy, and I'll tell you why, and another version of the product that you should buy, and I think you're going to love. Sound good? Good. Okay, without further ado, here's my friend Debra. Debra, welcome to Smart Girl Summer. You're one of the smartest ones out there in so many different fields. I am so excited to talk to you. We've talked to you as a mental health expert before, an author, and learned so much from you. You want to talk about some business?
Yeah, I feel so honored to be part of Smart Girl Summer. Like this is a big deal for me.
I feel like there's so much wisdom just waiting there, and nobody's ever asked you in a public platform. That's why we have these conversations, because to some degree, Christian women over time, you can speak to this better than I can, have been socialized where it's only acceptable to be like, oh, I just have this big ministry or this business, and who knows how it happened. I just spend my time praying and baking bread, and it just sprung up around me. And I don't say that like to come at people and say that they're not being authentic, but I say that because culturally, I think there's been pressure where women haven't wanted to seem like we really had a vision that God gave us and we're going for it. Because heaven forbid we get told that we're striving, things like that.
Right,
From your perspective, what all plays into that?
Yeah, you're right. It's this idea of, do you wait on God or do you take action? As if they're two different things.
Amen. Yes.
But to me, waiting on God is a posture of my heart. It's not a passive posture. It's not sitting around twiddling my thumbs. It's being intentional and moving towards Him. There's only so much I can do, but I'm going to do all that I can do. And then I trust that God's going to do all that He can do. It's like, it's a partnership. And that's how I view so much of life, even in how we approach relationships, how we approach mental health, how we approach business, how we approach dating. I am responsible for doing all that I can do with the talents that God has given me. And then He's responsible for doing all that He can do. And when we both do that, really good things can happen.
It's So good. I couldn't have said it better myself. So that brings me back to this word that Christian women fear. They fear this almost as much as they fear the word pride, and it's striving. Because this is the question I get all the time. How do I know that I'm not striving? Or how do you know that you're working toward a goal without striving? How would you even define striving? And what do you have to say to that question?
Interestingly enough, I've never thought about it. I've never thought about the word striving. And I wonder where that comes from to begin with. So are they taking the verse, a verse in the Bible, and maybe misconstruing it? The hymn that talks about where striving cease. Like, where have you heard that idea coming from to begin with, or what Bible verse might they be referring to?
Yeah, when I ask that question, I'm legitimately asking because I can't figure it out either. I think it's probably that verse, but there must have been a book, a sermon that went viral, something that scared everyone from all of a sudden being like, oh, I'm striving. I think to some degree, we should be striving to follow the goal, the calling that God has put on our lives and the goals that He's set before us. It's not like you wake up in the morning and as a Christian woman, you're like, I am going to start striving and doing my best in God's calling to become an assassin. We're not striving to do things to hurt people. We're striving to share our message that God's put on our heart and in a book, or build a community garden, or lead a Bible study, or start a business. These are wonderful things, but I don't know where it came from, and I don't know how to make sense of it, because I'm always tempted to go on a rant every time someone asks me, and that's not helpful.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. So I think underlying this is the idea of maybe believing that you don't trust God, and believing that you're trying to do more than He's called you to do. Like, I'm going to make this happen instead of trusting God to make it happen. And I think there's an underlying theology there that definitely needs to be addressed. Like, where did this come from? Why do you believe this? What does Scripture actually say? Because when I look at Scripture, I don't see a life of passivity. I see a life of proactivity, intentionality, especially intentionality. Like, God calls us to be intentional in so many ways with what we have, what we've been given, with where we're going. Even, I think of when Jesus healed the paralytic at the pool of Bethesda. Even in that passage where this guy was completely paralyzed and helpless, Jesus expected something of him. He said to him, do you want to be healed? And when the man said yes, Jesus said, well, then get up and take your mat. And it's like, how do I do that if I'm paralyzed? But Jesus is looking for us to show Him that we're serious, to stretch out your hand, to pick up your mat, to do what you don't think that you can do, and then watch yourself do it with the power that He's given you. And so it's not just like, let me do this for you. It's, let me show you that you can do this. Let me partner with you on this journey, whether it's healing, whether it's building something that you feel like God has called you to build. It's just a life of intentionality of, this is where I am and this is where I want to go, and I'm trusting God with each step. So I would say living intentionally is living how God wants us to live.
That's good. It's really good. Of course, it's going to be good with your background. If someone is just getting introduced to you right now, let's talk about your day job.
Yeah.
What do you do? What's your training? And how did you kind of transform a career that's normally a linear path to moving more online and writing books? What was that journey like for you?
Yeah. So, okay, so silly, but you know how everybody gets my last name wrong? You probably don't know this because you don't get it wrong, but my last name is Fileta. So Debra Fileta. And it's funny because when I started this journey, 10 years ago. I remember wanting to write, and I was a working mom for just one day a week and a stay-at-home mom for the rest of the time. And I would work in the office one day a week seeing clients. And I started writing in my field. I started writing articles that I've always loved to write. I've written devotions my whole life. And here's why I bring up my name, because I wanted to write a devotional. And I remember when I got serious about writing, I decided I was going to just put my devotions together and start pitching to whoever. I got this book. Back then it was called the Christian Writer's Market Guide. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember that.
And it was a book full of like literary agents and publishers and articles and magazines. And I started sending articles and just all kinds of things. Fridays, I would commit to just sending and pitching and writing. And I remember hearing back from people in that season. This was pre-kids now at this point, before kids. We love your writing, but who is Debra Fileta? Like, what is this? Like, we can't sell a devotion by a no-name, like this isn't going to work, right? Yeah. And so the business side of it was, I wasn't aware. I just felt like if you had good things to say, you're going to get a book deal, or you're going to get people to read your stuff. Didn't realize that that's not how the world worked, but I committed to doing it still every Friday. And fast forward little by little, people started reading my articles and enjoying them. And I still didn't have a book deal, but I was able to write articles and put the idea of writing a devotional on the back burner, like maybe one day. But for now, let me do what I'm able to do, which is write in my field. So I wrote things about counseling, psychology, relationships, toxic relationships, things that the church maybe wasn't talking about 10, 12 years ago. And so slowly those articles started to gain some traction, which then got me to think seriously about writing a book. And I pitched my first book to a literary agent, and he was like, this is great. Tell me about your social media platform. And I remember telling him, I have 82 Twitter followers. And I was so proud.
Hey, it's hard to get followers. I get it.
I was so proud. I mean, I'm home. I have 2 kids under 2 at the time. I don't care that much about social media. And I remember him saying, that's lovely, but why don't we just leave that part out of the book proposal? I'm like, all right, we can leave it out. He's like, let's just say you're working on growing your social media. And one thing led to another, but ultimately I got a book deal. And looking back, I really believe it was the Lord, because one publisher decided that they wanted to publish my book, and it was one of the biggest publishers. It was Zondervan. So it was like, you are a no-name, but we love your message. We love your heart. We love your counseling approach. And we want to bring you on to write your first book. So my very first book was about dating. It was called True Love Dates, kind of a play on words from the True Love Waits movement. But the idea that we can date, we just have to do it in a healthy way. And it starts by dating inward, which is like dealing with all our junk. Because junk attracts junk. Health attracts health. So how do we kind of take ownership of what we're bringing to the table and let that inform how and who we date? So that's kind of where my journey started. I published a book, and then I had no way to market it and no one to market it to. So plan B was I had to figure out how I was going to market this book. And so I started a blog. TrueLoveDates.com was birthed. And the articles took off and did really well. And let me just tell you, this isn't like a once and done thing. It's not like you put out one article and it goes out into the world and everybody loves it and it goes viral. Yeah. This is like a daily grind. What am I going to write today? What am I going to write today? What am I going to write this week? And just being committed to the discipline of doing what's in front of you, even when there's not much action happening. But just being committed to that intentionality, that daily discipline of writing and thinking and offering something up. I've said this many times, but I'll say it again. For me, it was this journey of offering the little loaves and fish that I had this is all I have between nap time and bedtimes, with 2 kids under 2. This is literally all I have, God, but I'm giving you 100% of it. And I'm going to see what you do with it.
I love that. And you always took action. Taking action is a core theme in your story. What year was True Love Dates? Was that published?
What year are we in now? 2024? 2013.
2013.
Yeah.
What I've heard from everyone, there's this theme in Smart Girl Summer this year, and this theme is, I am shocked, or I was shocked at how long everything takes.
Yeah.
Because we live in this culture where we have Instagram ads coming at us all the time. I just made $1 million with working 2 days a week. Or we just don't know how long everything takes. That really it is one little step building on another step, building on another step, building on another step. But if women like us don't talk about how long things take to build a business or to get a book deal or to sell a book, then other women won't realize a realistic length of time, and they'll think that they're failing when really they're just one step closer to where they want to be. It just takes forever.
It takes forever. It's layers. Like, I'm a decade in now, and I'm finally at a point where I see the fruit of my labor. A decade in, I can write a book and it sells. I can create a business and people are drawn to it. If I would have done any of that a decade ago, even my first book, it wasn't like the sales were not wildfire. I had a really hard time getting a second book deal because my book sales weren't that impressive with 82 Twitter followers, but it takes that faithfulness to what's in front of you. And then always going back to, why am I doing this to begin with? Why am I actually doing this? I'm doing this because this is what God has called me to do. I'm doing this because I have a message that he's placed on my heart. And if I really believe that, then I need to be a good steward of sharing that message. Otherwise, I am snuffing the message that God has given me, that I feel like he's given me to share. And so when I see it as his message, I'm much more motivated to get it out than when I think it's just my stuff. And there was a shift there. Like, even in the beginning, the idea of marketing felt so icky to me. Like, I don't want to market myself and advertise and, hey, buy my book. But now I'm at a point where I truly believe that this is a life-changing message that God has given me. I'm not just writing for the sake of writing. I'm writing to change lives. And if I really believe that, which I do, then I'm much more motivated and passionate, and I don't feel icky about putting it out there because I feel like it's what God has called me to do.
That's great. That's really great. Let's talk about, again, fast forwarding layer upon layer of all of this growth you've had in the last decade. Let's talk about how you divide up your time. So you are seeing clients and you are writing. What does a work week look like for you?
Yeah. And we've talked about this before, but I complicate my life just a little bit by homeschooling. We have 4 kids, and we've been homeschooling them since they were babies, essentially. So they've never been to public school, private school. This has kind of been our journey. And honestly, it makes my life easier in many ways. People probably don't believe that, but I'm not a early bird. I'm not rolling out of bed at 5 a.m. like the Proverbs 31 woman. I am like a 9 a.m., 8:30 a.m. kind of girl. Nice. So the homeschool life works for us because it's a slow-paced morning, a slow-paced start to the day. We're night owls, my husband and I, so it makes sense for us to be up to 12:30. But the rhythm has changed over the years. But early on, I was mostly with the kids 4 days a week. And then I had 1 day set aside to work. And my husband was working 4 days a week. Sometimes 5 when he was in residency, sometimes 6, 7 early on in our marriage, because he's on his own journey too. Like, we're both on our journey. We've got these kids. So early on, it looked like having my mom come watch the kids 1 day a week so I could work. Fast forward, now that we have 4 kids, we're in a season where John works 3 days a week out of the house, so that I can work 2 days a week out of the house. Right. But for me, it's not actually out of the house. I'm here in my basement. I'm just like going to work, walk downstairs. Yep. I have my studio, my office, everything's online. So I work 2.5 days a week currently. And then the other days I am full-time mom, just doing mom things, trying to compartmentalize and not be, everywhere all at once. I set aside time to answer emails, nap time. Like nap time has always been, I'm telling you, the things you can accomplish at nap time is remarkable when it's the only time you have in the day. But that's kind of what the day looks like right now. I commit a certain portion of my week to counseling and a certain portion of my week to the podcast, to writing, and to managing my counselors network. And that ratio changes depending on the season. When I'm in book writing season, I don't do any podcast interviews. I just write the book for 7 hours a day. When I'm not book writing, I can commit more time to podcasting, media, and I'm a type A person, so I kind of plan everything out and schedule a few months out what I'm going to do and when, try to make use of every minute. My husband's a finance guy. He's like budgets the dollar to the dollar. I budget my minute to the minute. Like that's kind of how I live my life.
That makes sense. I mean, when you're working around being a mom and making sure that you don't burn out, we'll talk about that because you have a great book coming out soon. It makes sense that you're budgeting minute to minute. Let's shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about social media. From your perspective as a mental health professional, what are the parameters that you put on it for yourself or you advise people to put on it to keep us using it personally, maybe using it professionally, so it stays healthy?
Yeah.
And then second part of this is, how do you use it professionally? Putting guardrails up for yourself.
Yeah. So first of all, I think this starts at a young age, especially in our culture today. So people always ask, especially the homeschool world. The homeschool world can be a little behind in some things.
Sometimes.
And so it's like, I feel like I'm a little bit of an oddball in that I do give my kids technology at a young age because I want them to start practicing using this in a way that honors themselves, their family, and God. So it's like, let's start from a young age, setting up some boundaries, seeing how you do with a little bit. Like, can you handle a little screen time during this time? Can you handle having an iPad with just a couple apps on it? Can you handle having FaceTime? Can you handle having Messenger? And like slowly building up to just healthy rhythms. So I do think it starts at a young age, just for moms out there that are listening. But for me personally, that looks like having app limits. So I like to have a 45 minute app limit on Instagram. I run my own Instagram account. I don't have anyone doing that. I do have a social media manager for my Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and whatever, YouTube, I don't know, whatever else is out there. But the one thing that I am personally on, answering DMs and interacting with people, I'm posting live, is Instagram. And so I like to have limits on it. And I view Instagram sort of like my church congregation. Like I'm the shepherd, they're the sheep. And I try to be really intentional with getting on there once a day and posting what I'm going to post and responding to as many comments and DMs as I can. And if I had to do a ratio, I try to keep my time on Instagram of 15% input, like I'm scrolling to see what people are up to, and 85% output. I'm just giving, I'm answering DMs, I'm responding to comments, and that's kind of my ratio, because I don't want to spend tons of time on there seeing what people are doing that aren't really important to me. But I think a little bit is fine. So I like to think of it in terms of like 15%, which I don't know how many minutes that comes out to, but just a few minutes out of the 45 minutes is going to be spent on taking stuff in. Whereas the majority of my time is just posting, commenting as much as I can, DMing people back as much as I can. And then when I'm done, I'm done. And it's just whatever. Sometimes I use up that 45 minutes. Sometimes I don't. It is to me part of my work day. So I try to see it as more of part of my work day versus just leisure activity. Because I'd much rather be doing something else for leisure. I'd rather be floating in the pool. I'd rather be taking a walk. I'd rather be playing pickleball. So I just try to not allow that to be my leisure. I'd rather be watching Netflix, seeing something that I actually enjoy, rather than just scrolling.
That's really smart. I did, and it's funny when you write so many books, you forget what book you put it in. But I put in some book, maybe the last one, I don't know. It may have actually been Breaking Busy way back when in 2016. Research that said the more time you spend on social media where it's passive, where you aren't actively engaged, where commenting and sending messages, the more passive time you spend scrolling, the worse you're going to feel after it. So that tip that you're sharing of 15% input and then the rest output, I think is really smart. Just not just from a business perspective, because you're commenting, you're encouraging, you're getting your name out there, you're showing up in feeds, but to protect your mental health.
Yeah,
because it is so
exactly.
dangerous.
And I've been trying to teach the kids of an output approach. This is kind of weird, but I had them start an Instagram account. My kids range from age 3 to 13. Obviously, the 3-year-old is not part of this, but my 8-year-old, 11-year-old, and 13-year-old started an Instagram account under my account. It's called Can't Stop Watching Videos. And all it is relaxing videos. You know those like weird relaxing, like something dripping or someone peeling an orange or
like
slime. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So we love watching those together just for fun. Like sometimes we'll just sit and watch a couple minutes of relaxing videos. So we decided this might be a good way to teach them how to use Instagram for output, not just input. So they've been, over the summers, they work on creating fun, relaxing videos and learning how to post them, put music to them, and kind of learning how to offer something up. I keep joking that one day it's going to pay for their college, but yeah, right.
You never know.
Although one of their videos got way more views than my videos. And it was like this, just like splurting paint on this thing. And I'm like, I put so much prayer and effort into my content. They're like literally throwing paint on a piece of paper and it's getting like 50,000 views. I'm like, what is going on in the world? But it is what it is.
Sometimes we're like, this is so deep. This is so amazing. And our moms like it. And then it's a picture of the dog and it goes crazy.
I know.
You just never know.
I'm going to start peeling oranges on my Instagram account and see what happens.
So as a counselor and an author, what are some things about the business side of what you do that people would be surprised to learn?
That's a good question. I would say how intentional I am with it. I don't talk about it at all. Mm-hmm. I don't ever really bring up my business with anybody but my husband. So it almost feels like it just popped up overnight. And it's like, whoa, how did you, wow, you're really lucky. I don't consider it luck. I consider it a whole lot of hard work with a whole lot of God's grace, but hard work that has been happening behind the scenes since 10 years ago. That is just now the brick by brick by brick by brick, you finally start seeing the structure of a house, right? It takes a while when you're going brick by brick, but it's a big part. Like I'm a very entrepreneur minded. I don't come across that way. And I do think my husband, he's been, we've kind of rubbed off on each other over the years. He's become more emotionally intelligent and I've become more entrepreneurially intelligent because we've sort of rubbed off on each other. Yeah. But I think in terms of intentionality, growth, how can I make this as appealing as possible? Marketing, like it's just how my brain works now after 10 years. And I actually think that sometimes the most thriving ministries are the ones that are the best in their business mentality, because it's about growth. It's about being good stewards with what you have been given, not just winging it. And so I have a lot of strategy underneath the surface that people would probably be surprised to if they sat down and talked with me about business.
I love that. Now, I will say, you're saying 10 years, but if that book came out in 2013, it's probably more like 13 years, because that means you probably started working on writing it or getting a deal in 2011, right?
Yeah. I think actually it was, believe it or not, it was 2012 because really funny story. I had this meeting with the publishing company and it happened to be on June 5th. I had my second child June 4th.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm literally in the hospital and I'm like, okay, I have this book meeting tomorrow and I can't miss it, because if I miss it, I might not have a chance at writing a book, but I don't want them to know I'm in the hospital. So I tell my husband, he sits in front of the door of the hospital to, like, because you know how many doctors and nurses, they just come in all the time. So we put the baby in nursery, and John guarded the door so that nobody would come in. He sat outside literally. And so I remember she called me, and the acquisitions editor, she's like, "Hey Debra, how are you?" And I'm trying to act all nonchalant. I'm hoping it doesn't come up, but 5 minutes in, she's like, "You're expecting soon, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, actually, I just had a baby yesterday evening." And she's like, "Are you kidding me? We could have rescheduled this." I was like, "Well, I just want to be on the safe side. I didn't want to reschedule it." And she's like, "You are committed." But literally, that's what I did. I had a publishing meeting January 5th of 2012 when Eli was born. And then the book came out October of 2013. So by the time I got the publishing deal, so let's say I got it in June, July, I had till September, October-ish to write the book that then came out the following September. Because you turn the manuscript in about 1 year prior to when the book launches. So that was that.
That's fantastic. I mean, if I'm an acquisitions editor and I'm talking to a woman that just had a baby 12 hours ago, I'd be like, this person is dedicated. Again, which is just another story to show, yes, in the last few years, you've really kind of blown up, but you didn't just saunter over. This is years and years of hard work, following God's calling, and just not giving up.
Yeah.
Not going, oh, it's taking too long. Maybe this isn't for me.
No, and not only that, but being okay with things when they weren't blowing up. Like one of my mentors, Gary Thomas, also became a co-author of mine over the years, but he said to me one time, and I'll never forget this, I was a new author. I'd only had True Love Dates written at the time. And I was kind of bummed that it wasn't like, I was imagining like wildfire sales, like you have no idea.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying to me, every time I write a book, I see it as a Father's Day card to the Lord. And if he decides to show it to 1 million people or just himself and tuck it away in his dresser, that's up to him. And it's just as meaningful. And I'm like, you know what? That is legit. And that's how I want to honor God with this stuff, this article, this book, this diaper that I'm changing that nobody's going to know about, nobody's going to see this. I want to just say, here, Lord, this is what I have for you today. And it's for you. And if you want to show 1 million people this article, this book, if you want to tell people I'm an amazing mom, or if you just don't want anybody to know and you just want to tuck it away as a gift to you, then I want to be okay with that, because as long as I'm pleasing your heart, that's all that matters. And I have worked so hard, Allie, to just keep my heart there every single day, every single morning, and to never think that I'm immune to getting to an unhealthy place where it's no longer for him. And so it's just, and I also feel like the more the Lord gives me, the more intentional I need to be with keeping my heart in the right place and just holding on to that attitude that this is really for him.
I love that. It's so healthy. Okay, I would I could talk to you for hours about business and writing and balancing and staying healthy. Tell us where we can find you, and tell us really quickly about the new book coming out in September, because this is a must read for all
Yes.
women.
Well, thank you. First of all, you can find me on Instagram at Debra Fileta or DebraFileta.com. TrueLoveDates.com still exists.
Oh,
It is all about relationships and articles about relationships and all kinds of stuff. And then my podcast is called Talk to Me. It is a series of on-air counseling sessions with different people about different topics. So that's where you can find me. I'm excited because in September 3rd, I have a book coming out called Soul Care. And it's about the 6 rhythms that Jesus practiced to care for his soul during his time on earth, and how we need to do the same so that we don't burn out and stress out and get to an unhealthy place, so that we're not living on E, but living life filled. You know, especially for those of us who are called to pour out, like you and I, and just moms in general, caregivers in general, you have to make sure that you're filling up so that you can pour out. And so it's just about practicing 6 intentional rhythms. But specifically, what I loved about it is that it was just a beautiful look into the life of Jesus and how healthy he really was. It just motivates you to become healthier and to become more like him in the process.
that's wonderful. I can't wait to read it. So, September 3rd, that's the day. And thank you for joining us and sharing your wisdom and sharing your insights and continuing this theme of it doesn't happen overnight, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Keep going. That's what we really want women to hear this summer. So thank you so much, Brenda. It's been great to chat with you.
Thank you for having me.
How great is she, right? I absolutely love her. Okay, let's talk about recommendations. I told you a few months ago I had given up foundation because of my tinted moisturizer. True, but sometimes I still needed a little extra. Plus, I love that extra sunscreen layer. So you have on tinted moisturizer with sunscreen, but then I love a good foundation with a little sunscreen too, especially in the summer when I'm outside all the time. But the problem is the vast majority of foundation looks like garbage. If it's foundation that you can get in the grocery store, you're going to look a little orange, and it's going to look like grocery store or Target foundation. I'm sure there are exceptions. I'm sure I'm going to hear about the exceptions. I get it. I understand it. But this is my experience. My experience as a woman who has been in love with cosmetics for 40 plus years, I can't find one, at least on this pale skin, that looks good. So you got to pay a little bit more. Both of these foundations are from It Cosmetics, which I love. But here's the one I do not want you to buy. I do not want you to buy the CC cream. It's called Your Skin But Better Color Correcting Full Coverage Cream. Okay. This is what does not work for me. And I'm very sorry, It Cosmetics, to be telling everyone not to buy it. Here's why I don't like it. When I put it on, it's too thick and splotchy. When I put it on, sometimes Mark will come out to me and be like, "Oh, what happened to your skin? That does not look good." And that's not good. That's not a good thing for anybody to do when they're close up to your skin. Do I get annoyed with him when he does that? Yes. Do I want to know close up if something doesn't look good? Also, yes. Here's what is amazing. It Cosmetics again. It's called Bye Bye Foundation. The thing I love about this is it is a broad spectrum SPF 50, just like the other, but it actually looks good on your skin. It doesn't make your skin look gross. I think because it's a very moisturizing foundation, when you put it on, it's not going to accentuate wrinkles. Here's what I use. I use a couple different types of these sponges. If you're listening and not watching on YouTube, I'm very sorry. This is really a YouTube part of the show today. Basically, you want to use a sponge. Sometimes I use a bigger one. Sometimes I use a soft one, a smaller one. I don't wet it first. I understand that that's supposed to be better. And I don't wash it every time I use the sponge to put it on. I will use literally the same sponge to put on foundation for a month. I hope you didn't just pass out. But I'm just trying to make it easy. I'm trying to be productive. I'm trying to be efficient. So far, nothing bad has happened, and I have been doing this off and on for years. So if you haven't gotten a sponge to put on foundation because you're like, I don't want to have to wash it every day and it's a big hassle, you really don't have to unless your skin is super sensitive or you have acne flares or something like that. But again, the foundation I'm wearing in summer, especially with all the like amusement park trips I'm taking and beach trips I'm taking, it's Bye Bye Foundation at Cosmetics. I wear light, which is, I think, maybe the lightest shade. I don't know, but should be. And I love it because it gives me that extra layer of sun protection on my face, which I am not spending all this time on skincare and keeping my face protected to go out in the sun and just trust a tinted moisturizer. I need a couple layers this summer. So that is your recommendation. Now, I did get an email recently from someone who said, "Hey, you're not giving us movie reviews on the show anymore. What's going on?" Here's what's going on. To get the video done, I am filming these podcast episodes now a month or so in advance. So by the time I see the movie, it's kind of old news. But I am giving movie reviews if you're on my email list. So if you get any email, if you're on the Sunday happiness tip or a Friday devotional or a coaching secret series, whatever series, or a mom tip, whichever one you're on, you're going to get an email from me once or twice a month. That's just a good things email where I go, this is what I'm loving. And I'll normally break down beauty products and movies or TV shows or books I'm reading or music I'm listening to, all of those details. I'm still going to do it on the show, but I'm giving tons every month. Like I said, some months, good things email comes out once a month, some months twice a month. You never know. It depends on how many good things I have in my life at the time. So if you're not on my email now, go to allieworthington.com, take a quiz, download something free. You're going to get on my email that way and you'll get all the recommendations. But I will tell you really quickly, movies that are great this summer. The Fall Guy is great. It makes me very sad it didn't get the praise it needed. I think I already told you about that. Inside Out 2, amazing. I'm so happy about Inside Out. I'm so happy it got all the praise that it's getting. The Hitman on Netflix, it's really cute, and I'm not really a comedy girl. It is rated R, and there's a little it's a little much in places, but it's super cute. Furiosa is a good movie. I'm just not a Mad Max girl. So I went because my boys wanted to go, but that's about it. So that's the overview of what I'm loving this summer. Now, if you're on email list, you already know all these things. If you're not on the email list, get on the email list. You're going to love it. And you know what else I love? I love you being here. I love you being here with me every single week, learning something that's going to help you grow, that's going to help you thrive, that's going to help you live life well. Because what I know about you is that God has created you to stand strong and bring something to the world that only you can bring. That's why you're here every week, learning something, just a little something all the time to take with you into the week. So keep stepping up, keep showing up and loving well, because you know the truth. You can't break a woman who gets her strength from God. I love to get to coach and equip you every week. I'll be back with you next Monday, and I hope you have a great day. Let's go. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Let me stop it. Maybe. Here we go. Got it. I hope I was recording. Oh, I was. Good. And we're out.